Hello and welcome back to the American Dream Portfolio. In the very first video of this channel, we painted a picture of people with modest incomes around the world having a real shot at pursuing and achieving the American dream. The purpose of this channel is to guide you through an understanding of that process to the point where you can take meaningful action. We have taken you through a lot of conceptual groundwork since that first video. This journey will lead, we promise, to actually constructing the American Dream Portfolio and putting it to work. We ask you to be patient. The groundwork is important. In this video, we seek to discover the key mechanism behind the growth of a hard-working portfolio. Knowing that key mechanism will help us identify promising investments and discard the laggards. Let's consider our three candidates for this key mechanism: compounding, appreciation, and exponential growth. We'll start with the favorite of content creators everywhere: exponential growth. No matter where you turn, it seems that every quantity under the sun is growing exponentially. Everything from the value of an investment guru's portfolio to the size of government debt to the number of likes on an influencer's social media channel. Are these claims true? Well, if they are, they don't count for much. That's because saying a quantity grows exponentially tells you absolutely nothing about how fast it's growing at any moment in time. It might be growing extremely fast, or it might be growing more slowly than a blade of grass. Let's consider a graph of exponential growth. This graph, courtesy of the Desmos graphing calculator, displays a curve of exponential growth. As you can see, the quantity being measured, whatever it might be, grows slowly until it reaches an interval when the growth rate increases visibly, followed by an explosion to the upside. Pretty impressive, isn't it? What if I told you it would take 693 years for this quantity to double from its starting point? And that this quantity would not explode to the upside for an additional 5,000 years? Don't you think that is a little too long to wait? And yet, this graph represents exponential growth in action. What makes it so agonizingly slow during the first 5,000 years is that the constant rate of growth applied to this quantity is small, just 0.1%. Aren't there checking accounts with interest rates that low? So why do so many people tout the magic of exponential growth? We suspect it's because exponential growth sounds impressive and it replaces a reasoned analysis of just what is going on. If you told your audience that your account is growing exponentially, you sound more sophisticated than if you say it's growing really fast. And you don't have to produce numerical evidence to support your claim, because everyone knows that exponential growth is amazing. So what does this analysis have to do with determining the key mechanism of superior investment growth? Well, it tells us that the mechanism is not exponential growth. This type of growth requires that a constant growth rate be applied to the value of the account at any time. A very low rate means we could be watching grass grow for thousands of years. A very high rate means we can retire tomorrow. But as we pointed out in a previous video, there are no fixed-rate investments that offer a strong enough return to give us meaningful growth over an expected lifetime. What about compounding, which we've been looking at recently? Could that be the key mechanism? Compounding is sort of a cousin of exponential growth. Both mechanisms produce investment growth when interest or other distributions from the account are reinvested back into the balance to produce interest on interest. The difference between the two is that exponential growth requires a constant rate multiplier, whereas compounding does not, as long as distributions are ploughed back into the account. Even at variable rates, compounding is in effect. But here again, rates available for compounding, whether fixed or variable, have not been high enough for several decades to give us the growth we need. Let's revisit the growth of McDonald's stock and the S&P 500 to see how this plays out and to determine the key mechanism. This data is courtesy of yitreturn.com. Here we see the growth of $10,000 invested in McDonald's stock over 30 years ago. The growth is impressive. A total return of 4,421% and an average annual return of 13.01%. But there was more than just the original $10,000 at work. For the display also shows that we reinvested all dividends received over those 30 years. That's sticky dollars and compounding at work. Does this mean the power of compounding was the key mechanism of this outstanding result? Well, we can't be sure. To find out, let's look at this next graph. Again, impressive results for the same 30-year investment in McDonald's stock. But this time the total return, at 2,786%, and average annual return, at 11.39%, are lower. Why? Because in this example, dividends paid out over those 30 years were not reinvested. They may have been spent. We don't know and we don't care. The point is, if dividends were not reinvested, there was no compound growth. So this second set of results, which accounts for about 63% of the growth achieved when compounding was in effect, is the key mechanism. Compounding certainly added punch to the results, but it was not the primary driver. If we look at the growth of an S&P 500 index fund during the same period, we get much the same result. The top graph shows the growth with dividends reinvested, the bottom graph, without reinvestment. If we do the math, we find that over 67% of the total return is achieved when dividends were not reinvested. Therefore, as with McDonald's stock, compounding was not the key driver. So, if the key mechanism is not exponential growth or compounding, what is it? The answer is appreciation, and we will dive into what that means in our next video.